as a parent and not engaging us as parents. You understand me? And that is where I get worried about. This school is refusing to discuss as major stakeholders in the development of their school, and it's worrying. And one other thing is this: so the other girl who is also in the lower primary has to pay 1,002 from 950 for the 2002. Now, apart from this, student fee has been increased, and then they also want to profiteer from the books we are supposed to buy. They won't give you the list of the books you have to buy. They only give you a social fee and tell you that, okay, for JHS, you have to pay 900. And I mean, I asked myself, even at the university, was I paying 2,000 for books? It comes from the Ministry of the Canada Education Service. And so if you don't want to give us that option, if you are selling a material to me for 35 cedis, and I can get it for 25 cedis down, and you still think that I should be, because you are saying that your book is branded. I mean, did you consult me when you're going to buy your book?
You hear that some parents lamenting the high increase in school fees for their wards in private basic schools. Meanwhile, the Ghana National Council of Private Schools has attributed the increase in fees for private schools to the rising cost of educational materials. Also speaking on the Citi Breakfast Show, Executive Director of the Ghana National Council of Private Schools, Enoch Jetura, says they will meet with the National Parent Teachers Association to schedule a flexible payment plan for parents.
The Constitution made it very clear that private schools enjoy the right of establishment and the right of maintenance. And as part of the maintenance, it is upon that the private schools take school fees. We do have feeding fee, we feed the children. We do have the operational costs, the tuition fee, the teachers' allowances, and let's say salaries that are being paid are also considered in that school fees. Tables and chairs, learning materials. When the dollar came down, we also informed the schools to do readjustments by way of contacting their service providers and let us know the position. The feedback that we got from the service providers and the schools was that most of the service providers had already ordered their materials. Textbook issue that has really increased the school fees, not necessarily the, let's say, the tuition fee and all other aspects. Almost all the textbooks that we use in Ghana are being published and printed outside. We have all actually come out with through some form of negotiation that the school supposed to negotiate with their suppliers, i.e. the textbook suppliers, the furniture suppliers, so that payment terms could be agreed upon.
That was the Executive Director of the Ghana National Council of Private Schools, Enoch Jetura.
Now, players in the aviation industry say visibility due to the weather is relatively clear and has not affected any flight landing yet. They maintain that the installation of the instrument landing system at the Tamale and the Kumasi airports have been aiding in landing of domestic flights in the event of poor visibility. Speaking to City News, the chief pilot at Passion Air, a domestic flight company, Captain Nasser Senari, assured passengers of safety in case of severe Harmattan in the days ahead.
The Harmattan this year, Harmattan usually kicks in around November and then ends somewhere around February, end of February. And this year has been very friendly, accommodating, let me put it this way. And in the past, whereby, unlike now, whereby you have modern nav aids, being put in place, which allows you to come, lower than before. Unlike before, the nav aids that we used to use to conduct approaches to land brought you at quite a higher altitude. So obviously, when the visibility is bad, you couldn't actually come in and land. So you had to go back to your departure point, or your alternate, they call it. But for now, in Kumasi, they say we have what we call the ILS, instrument landing system in Kumasi. The one in Tamale, we have what we call RNAV approaches which are very, very precise. And it allows you to come in and land safely.
You heard Chief Pilot of Passionair, Captain Nasser Senari.
Away from that, and the Ghana Statistical Service has revealed that inflation for the month of December rose to 54.1%. This means that in the month of December 2022, the general price level was 54.1% higher than same period in 2021. Food inflation was 59.7%, soaring against the 55.3% recorded in November 2022. Inflation for locally produced items was 51.1%, while that for imported items stood at 61.9%. Here is the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobina, in him speaking at a press conference on Wednesday.
Annual inflation for the month of December 2022 stood at 54.1% compared to December 2021. This compares with about 3.8 percentage point increase relative to the rate that was recorded in November 2022. In November 2022, year-on-year inflation stood at 50.3, and with a 3.8 percentage point increase, we are now recording an inflation rate of 54.1% for the month of December 2022. Month-on-month inflation for the month of December 2022 stood at 3.8%. This is comparing inflation rate for the month of November 2022 with the month December 2022. So on a month-on-month basis, prices of goods and services generally went up by 3.8% for the month of December 2022. Indeed, this is the first time that we are seeing a reversal in the upward rate of increase since we readjusted the weights in September 2022. In September 2022, it rose by 0.7% to 2.7% for the month of October 2022. It further rose from 2.7% to 8.6% between October and November 2022. And in the last 2 months of the 2022 calendar year, we've seen a reversal in the month-on-month upward change in prices of goods and services.
That was the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobina Enim. Let's stay with this particular story and pick the thought of Professor Godfrey Bokpin. He is an economist and a lecturer of finance at the University of Ghana Business School. Good afternoon to you, Prof, and thank you for joining us on the Citi Prime News.
Yes, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your cherished listeners.
Well, just as you may have heard, inflation has risen to 54.1% from November's 50.3%. Will you say that this particular increase was expected?
Mixed feeling. There was a strong view that inflation was yet to peak, and broadly in line with the expectation that inflation will remain elevated towards the end of the year, working through to the first quarter of 2023. But then when we saw the Christmas gift, I'm saying Christmas gift because when we saw the cedi recovering, part of it lost value strongly, we felt that that was a turning point, more or less. And therefore, that should moderate price development. But of course, we were mindful of the fact that there is a transmission lag in terms of when all of this reflects in the price build-up. And also, if you look at when the recovery peaked towards the middle of December 2022, the understanding is that it wouldn't have transmitted through the channel or to the system at the time that Ghana Statistical Service will be picking the data for December 2022. And therefore, that view became more or less like the norm, that inflation was likely to rise slightly, maybe at a slower rate than before, because of what happened with the cedi and also its effect on price build-up in terms of inflation. So overall, we wouldn't say that 54.1%
price, but it just tells you that we are not out of the woods yet, even though we see a little bit of slowdown in the price build-up. We need to be able to sustain the momentum and then also begin to also address some of the structural issues at the production level, so that at the end of the day we begin to see greater deceleration of inflation in a manner that would afford some level of stability and comfort for consumers.
Well, the projection, as you have indicated, did not happen despite the relative appreciation of the Ghana cedi. So what really will you say is the fundamental issue? Because as we have seen in the trajectory, consistently, inflation has been increasing, at least in the last 6 months. What you say is the fundamental issue then?
If you look at, in fact, for some time now, we will need to give some credit to Ghana Statistical Service because they provide a bit more detail on the price drivers, which then should help us look at what we have control over and what we do not. We do not have control over external shocks, supply chain disruptions, Russia, Ukraine, and all of that. But when you drill down, you see that there are structural production bottlenecks contributing to the price buildup, which we should be able to address. For instance, if you look at the local food inflation, you cannot blame that totally on exchange rates or external shocks. It may be a reflection of production bottlenecks that we need to address. If we don't address those structural issues, then the mere recovery on the value of the cedi against the major trading currencies may not be significant enough to push price down the way you and I would have expected. So whilst we see stability from the exchange rate, we should also be focusing on addressing the structural bottlenecks with production and probably iron out the local supply chain challenges in terms of the distance between where our MAF is in Accra and where the farmland is in the rural areas, and then make sure that the road network and the transportation challenges and all of that are addressed. We have to have a strategy. We cannot just hope that the cedi alone will solve all of that in that basket.
But what should this strategy you are talking about be?
If you look at the poster of the government statistician, you see that quite a sizable portion of the price build-up is within our control in terms of making sure that inputs get to farmers on time, and in terms of fertilizer distribution, in terms of ironing out basic infrastructure that connects the farmland to market centers in a way that allows us to move produce harvest from the hinterlands to the urban and peri-urban areas, and also make sure that we are able to also monitor the price mechanism along the food value chain so that middlemen and middlewomen do not necessarily profit unnecessarily from intermediary role, so that the final consumer benefit from that. Apart from that, it's also look at that unlike other countries like Cote d'Ivoire and the others where they reviewed some import duties to ease the burden in terms of the pass-through effect to the final consumer. And in Ghana, we have left consumers to their fate. If they survive, fine. That is it. So there's a strong pass-through, and we are unable to intervene in a way that, of course, certain interventions will also have fiscal implications. But in crisis moments like that, you manage the trade-off very well, so you don't expose your citizens so much to the shocks. Because we have seen other African countries do that. Togo, Benin, we've seen that Cote d'Ivoire. and all of that. And then broadly, and again, even with all the data that we get even at the micro level from Ghana Statistical Service, I am not seeing any policy response from government in terms of aggressively addressing agriculture and agribusiness. No, we've left that probably entirely to private sector, but that is beyond the business model of the private sector, because there are a minimum level of investment that government needs to make in order to make agriculture and agribusiness a bit more attractive. But we are not seeing that. That is a problem.
Well, Prof, finally, before you take leave of us, we know that you are in a crisis-hit situation and government has taken some steps. I recall the special central bank monetary policy interest rate and all that, and even some government spending cuts, all in a bid to tame inflation. But we have not seen the real results yet. What do you see happening in the coming months, or you want us to rally in anticipation of government IMF deal or the domestic debt exchange program?
Yeah, and essentially, you made the right point. We've seen monetary policy doing its bit, but you can see that the demand-related inflationary pressures that monetary policy would deal with, to some extent, we can see the progress along that line. But the supply issues, because the fiscal side hasn't done its part the way it should, it more or less dwarfs the efficacy or the effectiveness of monetary policy. So that is where we are. Then also the next question you need to ask yourself is that if you look at even the more than 1,000 basis point adjustments in the policy rate from 2022, if you look at where the policy rate is right now and you see where inflation is right now, you wonder whether it's inflation that is pulling the policy rate up or the policy rate is supposed to bring down inflation. You see that gap alone and you realize that, hey, we need other interventions more strongly from the fiscal side, right? And then also the next important question you ask yourself is whether the expenditure cut that the government announced was adequate. And we had held that long ago, that they were not adequate. They were a bit more cosmetic, right? And you are looking at expenditure cut that enhances growth. And we didn't see that. So we didn't see, because if you look at the extent of the problem, the expenditure cut government announced is infinitesimal in the scheme of things, okay? And so if anybody wants to know how well government has responded from the fiscal side, the evidence is there for them to see in terms of where inflation is and where lending rate is. Okay, so that tells you that. And then, hello?
I'm here with you, Prof.
With this data and the outlook, of course, we know that probably towards the end of the first quarter, we will see a stronger deceleration in inflation. But look at government inflation projection for 2023. Okay, that's an enormous task, and all of that. We saw government inflation projection for 2022, and 3 months or so into the budget year, we saw where inflation was, and the variance was so huge. So overall, we have not managed this crisis well. So it's very difficult to trust government policy prescription and implementation when you see variance at that level. Because, I mean, assuming anybody, of course, not many people have the capacity to forecast inflation. So everybody will turn to the budget. What is government inflation forecast and all of that? And it turns out to be completely off the target. It doesn't help in building credibility in government policy prescription and all of that. Then to make matters a bit worse, you look at Bank of Ghana's medium-term inflation target is still 8% with a symmetrical rate of 2%. And you see where we are now. So, of course, if we want to drive down price significantly, bring inflation down to 18% or so by the end of the year, that would tell you the level of monetary tightening that would have to be done this year, and to be complemented by austerity from the fiscal side. Now, if you want to bring down inflation significantly from where it is, then we know that the trade-off is going to be output. The trade-off is going to be growth. The trade-off is going to be employment. Okay, and here, so you look at all of that in the next 6, 10 years or so, and you cannot be overly confident about the future and the way some politicians have asked us to believe. They cannot be so, because already, if you look at the 2023 budget, with all the fiscal consolidation heavily predicated on revenue enhancement and little expenditure restraint, right, would have implication for growth. And that's why government is forecasting growth for 2023 to be lower than the forecast for 2022. We are looking at 2023, 2.8%. The World Bank just told us that growth for 2023 will actually be lower than what government projected at 2.7%. That has implication for job creation. That's implication for income, because output volatility has implication for consumption volatility and income volatility, right? So, and this is Ghana, a country where by 2040, as forecasts have been made, that our population will be 45 million by 2040, and 58% of that population will be less than 30 years. And the prediction is that from now to 2040, Ghana needs to create 10 million decent jobs, especially in the formal wage economy. And we are talking about all these things at a time when government is rolling out debt exchange that is yet to have its own implications in the system. The financial sector is seriously at risk. Okay, and that requires the government to engage and to build consensus and to revise the terms of the exchange in a manner that allows government to repair its balance sheet, whilst it guarantees the balance sheet of the private sector in a going concern manner. Under the current terms of the debt exchange, we can assure you, we don't need to get there for somebody to realize that we were right. We can cure it today. And the debt exchange in its current form will systematically weaken the balance sheet of the participating financial institutions.
industry practitioners and policymakers that would open the next frontiers of Africa. Two of the big needs of Africa currently are to A, increase the intra-African investment story, and B, the intra-African trade story. And that's why it's exciting to know that the Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat is a major partner to this. The Ghana Investment Promotion Center is a major partner to this. And our expectation is that the coalition of actors from the continent will take advantage of like-minded persons and the kind of discussions that will take place to move when it comes to the intra-African investment agenda and the intra-African trade.
Information Minister Kojo Opon Nkrumah speaking there.
The Judicial Committee of the Northern Regional House of Chiefs has unanimously declared as null and void the enskinment of Mahama Sumani as the Karga chief. The House says the enskinment goes contrary to the norms and cultural practices of the people of Dagbon. The committee has also given the former regent, Mahama Sumani, a 48-hour ultimatum to vacate the Karga Palace to make way for the legitimate chief enskinned by Yana Abukari II 2 years ago. The overlord of Dagbon, Yana Abukari II, enskinned Na Natomag Abdullahi as Karna. This enskinment was opposed by some groups in the Karaga traditional area who went ahead to enskin the regent as the chief against the authority of the overlord. The enskinned chief by the Yana petitioned the Judicial Committee of the Northern Regional House of Chiefs over the matter. In a ruling at the Regional House of Chiefs yesterday, the committee unanimously ruled that the petitioner, Na Nantong Abdullahi, was duly nominated and enskinned in accordance with Dagbon custom and tradition. Here's the secretary to Na Natoma Abdullahi Danladi speaking after the decision.
Upon his enskinment as a Karga chief, the regent, out of annoyance and dissatisfaction, launched a rebellion which was out of law and context. Nabetua from day one resolved that he's a true son of Dagbon, who has witnessed the dark days of Dagbon and would not want any other thing to be repeated to bring it back. He decided to go to the Judicial Committee of House of Chiefs to launch a complaint. Thank be to God Almighty Allah. The Judicial Committee has come out with a unanimous ruling. They have accepted his petition and they have denounced the petition, the counterclaim of Mr. Sumani, the regent of Karga. The court has instructed him to vacate the palace within 48 hours because none of his counterclaims has been accepted. Once the truth has come to light, he's urging the regent to do everything possible to go by this declaration in the interest of Karga people, in the interest of Dagbon, and in the interest of himself.
You heard the secretary to Nantoma Abdullahi Danladi.
Well, let's take a quick dash to the Central Regional because some beneficiaries of the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty Program LEAP in the Awutu Senya East District say they want an increment in the amount paid to them. Beneficiaries of the program previously received 200 Ghana cedis as monthly benefits, but the amount has been reduced to 150 cedis without any form of explanation. They again lament that they are faced with the challenge of replacing their e-switch cards. Some of them have been speaking to City News.
I just registered and have been paid twice. I received 150 cedis and it's not enough. The money doesn't come on time and it's worrying. We want them to increase the amount to help reduce the burden on us.
We buy 4 months, 5 months. The first card, I said they're now the money at 5.
Previously, we were paid promptly, but that is not the case these days. The money doesn't come on time, and we are supposed to receive the money every month, but they combine 2 months and pay us 150 cedis, which is not enough. When the card we use in withdrawing money has challenges, we find it difficult for it to be addressed. We need help from the government.
2 million, but 2 months now, 1 month, 1.5. That's what it is.
You heard some beneficiaries of the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program in the Awutu Senya East District of the Central Region. Assemblywoman for Adam Nana electoral area, Dinah Tete, urged the government to attend to the issues of the beneficiaries.
We have been getting a lot of these complaints
they have issues with their e-switch card. We are told that they are unable to access the e-switch. Nobody is attending. We have written letters. So we will just use this opportunity to plead with the government that they should attend to the, if you say, I'm going to give you your funds, and there is a technical hitch, like I have misplaced my card, there should be an avenue that you can easily resolve that issue. It is becoming difficult. For over a year, some people have not been able to access their LEAP funds, okay? And so, and surprisingly, it is not even coming. The last time we got LEAP, it's over 4 months, 5 months. The money is not coming as it should be. And so if you ask me, then I'll use this opportunity to plead with the government to release the funds so that our aged folks will also have access to whatever is due. Though it is small, they will still manage it.
Dinah Tete is Assemblywoman for Adam Nana electoral area in the Central Region.
Managers of some private basic schools in the Ashanti region say they are recording low enrollment for the new academic year due to adjustment in fees and other bills. The authorities are attributing the hike in fees and adjustments in other bills to increasing prices of goods and services. In this report, City News' Ashanti regional correspondent Hafiz Tijani visited a school and interacted with some parents and authorities.
Hello, madam. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
You came to drop your kids, sir?
Oh, yes, please. I have 2 kids in this school and I came to drop them, please.
Zainab Abdulhamid is returning home after she dropped off her children at school. 2 of her children attend the Bam Village School, and she has come to pay for the new academic year fees and also buy some stationery for them. The fees and cost of other services the school renders have gone up, and parents like her are complaining.
With the cost we are adjusting, though things are a bit hard nowadays, so we are adjusting. There are so many things that have increased in stationaries, I think books, everything has been increased. So the school has to limit its adjustment to the parents so that we all can at least adjust to it. So
my husband always come for it, but he was saying that the price have come high. Like he said that they have increases now is 35, like almost 35 million. Am I right? So, but before I don't remember, please. I don't know.
The increasing prices of food items, toiletries, fuel, and other essentials used to run schools like this one is forcing authorities to also adjust.
So for here, 20% increment in some of our items have been done, and still parents are complaining. We feel for them, but we can't help it. The brain drain internally is happening. Parents who cannot afford are taking their kids to schools that they think they are affordable. We stated it differently. People who were also attending schools that were charging higher than ours are also bringing their kids here. But you see, the pace of admission is not encouraging at all. And even the existing students, as of now, some of them have not procured their books, which has not happened before. Everything has changed.
Private schools like this one went through a lot of difficulty during the COVID-19 pandemic, with most of them laying off their workers. Managers of these schools say a similar challenge is staring at them with the current economic situation.
We are not even out of the COVID. Businesses collapse, and these are the same parents and businesses operators who are, also tackled with the problem of dollarization. The dollar is getting to 11 cedis as of now. It was from 6.3 as at August, and now it is almost 11 cedis to 12 cedis. And things have astronomically increased. The COVID, we are not even out of it. Coupled and slapped with this increment in prices of goods and services, in fact, we have to cry, and we are still crying.
For some parents, the adjustment is normal with the current economic situation.
It's worth it because I've seen so many changes in those cases. Academically, excellent.
When you are paying for something and you see the effects as positive, with the positive effects, it helps you, it encourages you to do more. But in the case that you don't see what you are paying for, definitely you have a second thought about it. So the increasing and then the performance of the child is okay.
Director of the BAM Village School, Paul Oseitutu, wants the government to put in place measures to save businesses like his.
The onus and the auspices lies on the government to put up proactive measures and come out with a better economic conditions and reforms that will revive the economy for us. We shouldn't politicize it because it's serious. And we need to come together. All the political parties need to come together to have a tripartite meeting with the government so that we all see the best. That is the government in power, opposition, and independent body on a meeting for us to discuss the way forward, so that we can have a shift or paradigm shift in the economy as far as its advantages are concerned.
School authorities hope parents understand the hike in fees in line with recent economic conditions, but parents are looking forward to a regulated fees regime while they sacrifice to give their children the best of education. Hafiz Tijani, City News, Kumasi.
And this has been the Citi Prime News on 97.3 Citi FM. It came to you live from our studios at number 11, Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka, Accra. My name is Ni Latte. I was here with
Eno Safo.
Visit our website, citynewsroom.com. We have more stories there for you. Netele Net Ajawa is next with the afternoon's edition of the City Business News.
City 97.3. More variety.
The city is alive on 97.3.
City 97.3. Accra.
Get the details. Every significant financial transaction, every market movement, and all the policies that affect your business. City Business News. Be informed.
Hello and welcome to the afternoon's edition of City Business News, proudly brought to you by your most comprehensive business news website, citybusinessnews.com. My name is Netele Ajahu. Coming up, inflation soars further to hit 54.1%, and COPEC pushes for further reduction in fuel prices to cushion Ghanaians. Let's settle for the details now. The Ghana Statistical Service has disclosed that inflation for the month of December 2022 has risen to hit 54.1%. This means that in the month of December 2022, the general price level was 54.1% higher than the same period in 2021. Food inflation was 59.7%, soaring against the 55.3% recorded in November 2022. Inflation for locally produced items was 51.1%, while that for imported items stood at 61.9%. Here's the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobnini, speaking at a press conference today.
Annual inflation for the month of December 2022 stood at 54.1% compared to December 2021. This compares with about 3.8 percentage point increase relative to the rate that was recorded in November 2022. In November 2022, year-on-year inflation stood at 50.3, and with a 3.8 percentage point increase, we are now recording an inflation rate of 54.1% for the month of December 2022. Month-on-month inflation for the month of December 2022 stood at 3.8%. This is comparing inflation rate for the month of November 2022 with the month December 2022. So on a month-on-month basis, prices of goods and services generally went up by 3.8% for the month of December 2022. Indeed, this is the first time that we are seeing a reversal in the upward rate of increase since we readjusted the weights in September 2022. In September 2022, it rose by 0.7% to 2.7% for the month of October 2022. It further rose from 2.7% to 8.6% between October and November 2022. November 2022, and in the last 2 months of the 2022 calendar year, we've seen a reversal in the month-on-month upward change in prices of goods and services.
Professor Samuel Kobnainim is the government statistician. The Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, has expressed concerns over what it describes as overcharging by the three major oil marketing companies in the country. According to COPEC, per data available to it for the pricing window of the month, petrol should retail at 10 cedis 59 pesos per litre and diesel at 12 cedis 84 pesos per litre. However, the OMCs reduced their prices at the start of the year to 12 cedis 40 pesos and 14 cedis 60 pesos